study. So is that enough motivation for somebody who is a dropout to say, look, I've got to go back to school and liberate myself because there's a bigger reward?
So how do you feel like culture has played a big part, or culture, let me just put all in a group, culture, religion, tribalism, just all of those stuff? Because as I will always say, before someone becomes a political person, they were once a citizen too.
Power has got to rest with the people. The nobles, as few as they are, cannot continue to control the destiny of hundreds of thousands of people.
Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of Based on My Opinion podcast. I am your host Kemi, and today we're going to be asking a very uncomfortable question that's in the heart of frustrated Nigerians. Is politics in Nigeria truly about governance, or is it just a means to create wealth and a lifestyle? I have a very interesting guest with us today, and I'm going to let our guest introduce himself.
Yeah, I'm glad to be on this stage. Gilbert Joseph is my name, and I'm looking forward to what an exciting time we're going to be having.
So this episode is going to be an interesting one. I'm just going to go straight into the conversation of today. So what's your take about Nigerian politics to begin with?
Well, there's no nuanced approach when it comes to an overall assessment of Nigerian politics, sadly, because it tells you that anything and anyone can drift further afield. So we lose track of coordination, we lose track of orderliness, we lose track of what the norm in terms of global best practices are. So this is the terrain or the turf that we found ourselves in. And it's a sad one, and it gets even sadder, quote unquote, because we're moving in such a direction that there's little or scarcely any hope that things can get any better. And so I'll leave it at that pessimistic note for now.
Okay. So if, for example, a person or a political candidate that probably enter into governing as maybe an average earning citizen, and all of a sudden he's leaving seats with mansions, hospitals and businesses across, the state and out of the state. And, we still have in Nigeria that there's poor infrastructures, bad hospital care, bad road, bad security. Do you feel like Nigerian politics has ultimately become, the success story to making wealth and not even about the governance itself?
Kemi, Nigeria is a country that has committed too many sins against a reason. Because you cannot explain that a country that was at least amongst the first 3 generations of African nations to have discovered liquid gold has not been able to manage that or even end up sustaining itself with what it's been endowed with. You gave a picturesque example. Somebody from nowhere, a truck pusher, for example, delves into politics, and before you know it, he's jetting in and out of the country. Nothing can be, closer to the truth than this scenario. And that is exactly the sort of example that the political class or the ruling elite has set for the younger generation, or for even those who are aspiring to get into politics as we speak. And so the hope, like I said in my gambit, is scarce. The hope is non-existent, and we haven't conquered hunger. In Abraham Maslow's theorization, he said food, shelter, clothing are those 3 basic human needs. And so if you haven't been able to conquer housing, shelter, if you haven't been able to conquer food, your need for food, basic need, I'm not talking about a balanced diet. I'm not quite sure if any of us in this room gets to benefit from a balanced diet by each person there. And this is the Nigerian situation. It's the Nigerian example, And so it leaves you with a lot of questions. If you haven't been able to conquer this, how sure are we that when you get to serve the rest of us, we're going to get the best of you? And so that's a huge problem. We've got very poor agricultural practices.
Sure.
We've got very poor technological advancement, very poor education. I'm not even talking about the organization of our politics in itself, the art of governance in itself. We haven't mastered that enough.
So, according to statistics, Nigerian lawmakers are one of the people with high salaries. And it leads me to make this statement. Do you feel like because of the attraction or the privileges that comes with, attaining a political seat, is kind of wiring the minds of these people to just see this as a means for them to pack as much as they could, or it's actually giving them reasons to even govern entirely? Like, okay, since there's a good environment for me to govern, it's going to wire my mind to do better. Or have you seen in today's Nigerian politics that it's this, side attraction is making them just, oh, I need to cut this national cake and get over with it before my tenure is done?
We understand the motivation in our setup. You cannot compare, the Nigerian legislator, the average Nigerian legislator, with the average legislator to say in Mauritius, which is right now about the most robust democracy in Africa. And that's a country that perhaps an SS3 student in a Nigerian high school hasn't heard of. And so that gives you a lot to think about. That gives you a lot to take home. And so these guys have one motive. It's pretty clear. It's crystal clear. It's not about service. It's not about the people. We understand it's about how deep the pocket should get when it comes to what they can benefit. What's the quality of the service they're even giving to the Nigerian people? What are the qualities of the laws they're giving to the Nigerian people? And oversight is one word that has been abused in our context. What sort of oversight functions do they carry out? The Minister of Foreign Affairs, for example, what's happening in South Africa?
What are they doing?
What is the House Committee in charge of that ministry? And what are they doing as we speak about that? So this just tells you that it's a tea party for them. It's about what, their families, their next or even 12th generation could benefit by virtue of the fact that my uncle, my dad, is once a senator or was once a senator in this great country. And this is where we are, sadly.
Okay. There's this word, quote unquote, stomach infrastructure. And now we're running into the campaign season now. We're going to see things like handing out of rice, envelope of 15K, and all of those kind of stuff. So it leads me to, has Nigerian politics become a transactional lifestyle thing of buying loyalty to just occupy this seat? Because if Nigerians themselves are complaining about the governances, but then they hand out these little things to you and then you recycle the same people and you expect a miracle to happen, don't you feel like the people are actually the one fueling this kind of governance?
It is not even close to what you have said. It is not transactional. When there is a transaction, I get something value for value in equal proportion what I'm giving.
Okay.
But what's currently obtained is far less than what the ruling class gets to benefit. For example, if they're buying a vote, 15,000 naira is not, as we understand it today, the average price of one vote. It is far beyond that. If we're going to quantify it, for example, let's talk about hundreds of thousands in the ideal sense of things, but that is not currently what obtained. So it is an amplification of our inhuman dignity. That is exactly what is going on between politicians and the people who provide the fattest cow, the voters who get to, whatever it is, face the difficulties, the harshest realities of our economy. So we're people that have been so badly injured, so badly battered, that in the end, it looks like we're at the mercy of the people who do not have the word mercy in their vocabularies.
Okay. So like, for example, compared to the lifestyle of, other politicians across, like overseas, you see things like SUVs, overseas trips, lavish parties, properties here and there with just governance, and then we still have governance metrics of poverty rate increase, insecurity, lack of proper healthcare access, and poor education. And one of the biggest thing now I feel like Nigeria should be tackling is the education system. At what point does this disconnect proof of politics and building a personal empire? Because when I see an average politician lifestyle, my head is also it's kind of rewiring. Like, I want to enter politics for the lifestyle. I feel like it also affects the citizen because you see like tens to twenties of SUV following one person. You have the ambulance, you have this, you have the bulletproof cars. Do you feel like in some way, because as I will always say, before someone becomes a political person, they were once a citizen too, and they also remain a citizen. So do you feel like this lifestyle also kind of wire how even someone that is going into politics would take it like, I see this as it?
It is a typical case of escapism. I've got to escape poverty. I've got to escape the shanty lifestyle, whatever it is. I come from a ghetto that has no basic amenities. There's no light, there's no water, and my best bet is to venture into politics.
Okay.
And that sort of amplifies the madness, the inherent madness in such individuals that was never diagnosed in the first place. Because when you have got that so much resources at your disposal and you cannot command it appropriately,
Okay.
that is when the human evil, as St. Augustine calls it in philosophical terms, that is when it gets amplified by the day. And I mean, the world over, that is why there are systems to checkmate behaviors and excesses. Lord Acton says, power corrupts, absolute power corrupts, absolutely.
True.
So, if you don't have the parameters, the gauges that say, look, you cannot cross this boundary, it's a total failure what the system gives you. And that's what we're finding. You spoke about education. What is our average budget for education? That question hasn't been answered for how many years? But what does the UNESCO provision in terms of educational spending say? So if you want to compare that side by side, you can tell virtually where the root of our problems is or are. And at the end of the day, little wonder why we have so much reservoir recruitment when it comes to banditry, terrorism, whatever it is, kidnapping, name it. These things get amplified, and there are people in their thousands waiting to get recruited into that industry. It's a multi-millionaire industry as we know it right now.
Sure.
And so it pays them. What education hasn't been able to give. You went to school, Kemi. What's your net worth in monetary terms alone? Is that where you want to be? Is that where you see yourself in the next 10 years? What exactly should be your dream life? The fact that you're educated and as a Nigerian, does that guarantee you the sort of life you want to live? So is that enough motivation for somebody who is a dropout to say, look, I've got to go back to school and liberate myself because there's a bigger reward? So it tells you that we live in a hopeless situation. And I don't mince words in saying this.
Okay, so can we then say if, for example, there's reduction, like, cut cost in things like allowances, pension, and, payment of like ex-political candidates, do you feel like it's going to, bring out more of selfless governance? Like if, okay, if I'm a governor, my pay is according to how much infrastructure I brought into the state. My pay is based on how much development I brought into the state, whether it's in the health system, whether it's in the education system, whether it's even just the simple livelihood of an average Nigeria. Do you feel like that's going to change or drive the governor, be governing the state in a whole different direction if there's a cut? Because, you hear things like there's allowance for seating, allowance for this, allowance for that. Do you feel like if there's cut on all of those things, it can actually change how political candidates govern?
I'm on the wrong side of the microphone to be able to ask a question, but I'm going to violate that rule. Who is going to change the status quo? Who would say, look, At the end of the day, we've got to cut down these salaries. Who will do that, Kemi? It's got to be the very same beneficiaries who have so much conduit pipe to benefit them. So, like I said earlier, the situation is quite hopeless. If we're going to effect a change, we've got to honestly understand the enormity of powers that lie with the Nigerian people.
Okay.
And right now, we haven't gotten to that point at all. I'm going to give you a background, a very brief background. We came from the era of the Crusades in 12th, 13th century, thereabout. What was the Crusades? What were the Crusades all about? It was about land. It was about more power and authority for the nobles.
Okay.
We experienced a disruption in global system when the era of the Enlightenment guys happened, the French Revolution in the 19th century. What was it about? It was about the fact that Jean-Jacques Rousseau said, look, power has got to rest with the people. The nobles, as few as they are, cannot continue to control the destiny of hundreds of thousands of people, in our case, millions of people, as we have it right now. So we've got to really get to that point where we know that power rests and indeed lies with all of us, and that the big guys cannot take advantage of our situation by virtue of their privileges and the sheer advantage they've got in terms of time, space, and, like I said, privilege.
Okay. Like, I want to go back to I don't know if I should call it a historical event or occurrences. Like, during the NSAS, we saw a time where Nigeria was driven to a purpose of where they needed, SARS to stop harassing people. And we all know how that turned out. So in a Nigeria whereby a lot of people have already given up on the nation, was one thing that, should I say, youth or an average Nigerian to look out for, like, okay, if we want to choose a better governors, better lawmakers and stuff, what are things we should look out to tell that this person is not just here for the lifestyle, but actually here to serve the country?
These are clear. These are clear. People do not just appear. People do not get to a podium with no tracks. They cannot just violate the orderliness of an aisle.
Okay.
You see the advancements. Where is this person coming from? What has he done with little opportunity that he has got? Track records are really important. So we've got to, and that comes again from the sophistication of the Nigerian people.
Okay.
Can they identify what they need? If someone comes to you to solicit for votes and gives you a bag of salt or 10,000 naira or a merchandise to be able to, procure your vote, that already is a red flag. But are we able to identify this? Rather, we see very impoverished people sell their votes for peanuts. And in the end, it is the lack of that ability to raise questions and to even identify the red flags that already show that, look, if these guys get to where they are anticipating to get to, it will indeed be a dangerous affair for the rest of humanity.
Okay. So how do you feel like, because you made mention of impoverishment, and that's one of the tools that is used to, get people votes, apart from like culture, tribalism, religion, and all of those stuff. So how do you feel like culture has played a big part, or culture, let me just put all in a group: culture, religion, tribalism, just all of those stuff. How do you think it has fueled people? Or because we keep recycling the same people and then we expect a certain change and we just see them doing the same thing and we're complaining. So how do you feel like that has affected how we selected people and how it has constantly kept these people in seats to enrich their pockets and all of those stuff?
Well, it is about the sophistication again of the Nigerian masses. They've got to get to that point where they understand how powerful they are, like I said, and this cannot be underemphasized. By the time they get to that consciousness, and George Orwell said in 1984, until they rebel, they can never become conscious. And until they become conscious, they can never rebel. And it tells you that there's a lot of interplay in the both sides. So you've got to build that sophistication to identify what your liberation would look like. And so when you're able to do that, I mean, and when people talk about liberation, they think it's about violent uprisings and what have you. No, there are non-violent revolutions, and we've seen this happen in history. How did, for example, Mohandas Gandhi, win the rights of the average Indian in South Africa? And how did the whites in South Africa understand that, look, there's a limit to which you can, push these people to the edge? It was non-violent revolution that he used as a tool to drive home. So there is a lot of work that needs to be done in terms of organization, organizing the people, and making sure that they are sophisticated enough to resist whatever it is that comes to trample their attempts at getting a better deal. Otherwise, nothing gets to move.
So do you feel there should be like, if I don't know, something to regulate this whole thing, that it can shift from all these political candidates or people that occupy political space to not just see this political seat or political avenue for enriching their pockets? Do you feel, or what's your own input or suggestion that you feel you can put in that, if someone is watching this episode, they can start driving towards that direction? Because I was speaking to a political analyst too, and he was like, if we want to cause like a change in Nigeria, the next coming election, nobody should vote. That would give a message that if something is not done, we're not moved. So what do you think would be your own input, or what advice do you think you would give like a Nigeria that is actually involved in knowing the affairs of the country? Like, what is that one input you tell them, like, this is what you should do, that maybe it can, compel the government to not just see this as an avenue of making money and actually put them on their toes to work?
Well, first off, it's practically impossible for just about all of us not to vote. The people seeking our votes are entitled to cast their ballots as well. So that argument falls in its face. So what do we do? What's the way out? Recommendation one: you've got to go out in your good numbers to vote. You've got to be vigilant. You've got to ensure that the votes count. That's the meaning of the word vigilant in this sense.
Okay.
Second recommendation, I take you back to New England, when the founders of America, attempted to ensure that they put in helpful pillars for the survival of a republic known as the United States of America. The people in New England took ownership of their destinies with no government functionary coming into the picture. They understood the essence of democracy. They discussed about their future, discussed about healthcare, basic amenities, road, wherever it is, infrastructure, water, and ensured that every individual contributed to the coffers of New England to make sure that they had a county habitable for all of them. And it happened. So if we're going to have to do this, let's start from the little places. If you're starting from a local government, ensure that this system works. When that happens, you've got a template to take to the next local government. State levels, this can happen. And I'm afraid that when the big guys see this coming, they would understand the volume of consciousness and reawakening that may have started to permeate the land. That's a key example. People can take a look up at the New England example. And then lastly, there's something that happened in Peru with Alberto Fujimori. People just have to read that up. I'm not going to sit here and pontificate about that. He was called all sorts of names, Alberto Fujimori. He was castigated for human rights violations and what have you. But there was results in the end. So that is another way to be able to do that.
Okay, so for a Nigeria that really cares about Nigeria and they don't want to give up, what's that one beam of hope you can give them? Like, okay, don't give up, Nigeria, because a lot of people are already declaring Nigeria as a failed state, which is very sad. Our security is not functioning, our health system is not functioning, our roads are not good, and all of those stuff. So For someone that still cares about Nigeria and the Nigerian system, the Nigerian affairs, and all of that, what's that one thing to just let's hold on this and see that change could still happen?
Yeah, I'm not going to sit here and argue against the fact that all the signs of a decaying republic are obtainable in Nigeria. However, this is a blessed country,
It
a
is.
tremendously blessed country. There's so much of potential, and there's too many guys doing good things. There's too many guys ensuring that things work out. And so, I mean, that is good enough reason. It may be a flash in the pan, but there's good enough reason to believe that Nigeria is going to work and that our country would attain its fullest potential.
So, are we coming to the conclusion that with the current state of leadership in Nigeria, it has become like an avenue of lifestyle and just creating more wealth for themselves or actual governance? Or we can give credit to some and discredit the other?
The political terrain is a scenery of absolute madness. And the point in summary is that it's an enterprise that fits the very few guys. So I think that quite answers your question. But it's an eyesore. It's a huge embarrassment. And we've got to take ownership. We own this land. They are not more Nigerian than the rest of us. And so we've got to understand our powers. We've got to use the least instruments that we have to ensure that the necessary change we hope to see suffices.
Thank you so much for joining us on today's episode. I'm happy you were able to share some wisdom and light on this because I feel like it's a very broad topic, but you're able to put together something.
It's my pleasure.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.